Back in January of 2020, it is no secret that I went through one of the most arguably toughest seasons of my life. I went through a very dark place mentally. I went through a very dark place spiritually, where I was placed on a psychiatric hold for like 3 times in the month of January. So as you can, or 2 times I was on a psychiatric hold, and one of those experiences I was placed on a 1799, which was the step right before you get placed on psychiatric hold. And I talk openly about this experience because I want people to understand, like, you can go through the most ugliest and the most darkest moments of your life, and you can still utilize those experiences. There can be something good that comes out of that experience. Now, when I was navigating this experience, I was going through a tough time. There was a lot of stuff going on for a very, very long time. I'm not talking about for several days or several weeks, but it was going on for in an immensely long period of time, where I personally just kept to himself. I personally always somehow to show up with a smile and showed up with this infectious positive spirit when I was around other people, when I was outside of my home. But behind closed doors, there was a lot of turmoil. There was a lot of there was a lot of negativity going on, and eventually that takes a toll on one's mental state, one's spiritual well-being. And little did I know in that period, where, reflecting off of it, I noticed there was this pent up anger starting to just pile upon each other. And eventually it led to a point where I snapped. I went through a very dark phase. In this moment, there was a lot of rage and a lot of pent up anger that, kind of transpired from all of this. But from this experience as well, is there's so much beneath it, or so much more to it, where in a spiritual context, it's like another it's like the me was no longer me. And what I mean by that, it's not like the you that you have this control of. It's not like that. It's because there's so much from that experience where I know about, because I lived it. I personally gone through it. But there's moments of it when I hear about it, or I see photos of me in certain states, in certain moments. I don't remember it. Like, it's a complete blur. It's like a blackout. And the best way I can describe it, and I never really shared and talked about this, is it's like some kind of a possession that was going on. And that's very dark to even say, and that's a very strong word to even utilize. And I am fully aware of that. But that's the closest thing I can go about it. It's like some kind of a possession that kind of took place. And while I was navigating this period, is, again, I'm placed on a psychiatric hold. The Victor, was no longer me. I was no longer Victor. And it was a very, again, ugly experience. But I realized that experience had purpose, because as I was navigating this period, again, I'm on a psychiatric hold. During this process, the medical, so for those of you that are unfamiliar with it, is I was placed on the 5150. And for California, which is where I reside in, is that means that you no longer have rights. This hospital that you are in has 100% full control of you. They dictate what goes on next. They dictate whether or not you want treatment, or whether it is you want treatment, or whether it is you don't. They dictate what's going to happen, what's going to take place. That's what a 5150 was, or is, and that's what I was under. When I was going through this, I couldn't have a say in anything. My mom couldn't have a say in anything. My family, lawyers, no one had a say in absolutely anything. The only thing that was within control was another psychiatrist that had a lot more authority, to compared to the one who placed me originally on the 5150, had the power to overturn it. Now, the first one, when I went through this experience, again, this is January of 2020, when I was navigating this experience, what happened is I was in a very dark mental place where, again, it's like it was me, but it wasn't me. A lot of this experience is a blur. And when I was navigating this experience, I was sedated for 4 days. They came into the room, medical professionals came into the room. They gave me a shot in my arm, and I fell asleep. I was sedated. And for the next several days afterwards, from that moment, is I remember waking up in the hospital. And when I woke up in the hospital, I was I remember the first thing out of my mouth was, "Can I have a Bible and can I have a rosary? And can I see a father? Can I see a chaplain?" And sure enough, they ended up doing so. And from then on, it was this beautiful transformation that till this day I cannot fully describe what happened or exactly what kind of like I can't fully put into words what exactly happened in that moment. What I can know is that I immediately woke up and I immediately felt liberated. I felt liberated from pain. I felt liberated from the anger. I felt liberated from this depression. I felt liberated from all of these different things that I was consciously and subconsciously going through. I felt liberated. And when I felt liberated, it was I had this moment of transformation where I immediately then, from that day and forward, gave praise, saying Jesus saved my life, because he did. Now, I did not see him. I didn't hear his voice. I didn't, go through anything like that. I don't have a story like that. That's not what I experienced. But there was something that happened that, again, till this day, I cannot fully put into words. But I just immediately knew Jesus saved my life. And from then on, I started holding, God close. I started building a relationship with Jesus. And although it wasn't easy, and it definitely still isn't, I'm making this video in 2026. And there's definitely been a lot of seasons throughout my life. And like I mentioned earlier, this was the first experience that I experienced being on a 5150. The second experience, again, I felt liberated from all of this pain and depression and this rage that was just kind of being pent up, and bottled up and bottled in for so long. And it exploded like a volcano. And when I was navigating this experience, I remember just feeling this so much sense of relief and a lot of stuff was going on with the world as well. There was Amazon fire going on, and that's a whole story within itself that I'll talk about later. And there was just immense rain that kind of helped put out the Amazon fire, that helped with it. And that gave me so much sense of relief. It was I felt very connected in a very unique way. I cannot put into words. I never even shared that out loud with anyone. But as I was reflecting off of a lot of the experience and everything that was going on, I'm on antidepressants now because of this experience. I'm on mental health medications, to say the least. And I'm even more upset. I'm starting to get more upset because of it. I only, essentially lost self control just once. If, for example, in the context, if I was able to walk and I got into a fight, right, and I got into this physical altercation, sure there would be repercussions, depending on the severity and the extent of the heat of the moment, right? But when that happens, you dictate, the steps afterwards. You have that choice. Now, me being 5150, I didn't have a choice. I didn't have a choice whether or not I wanted to take the medication. I didn't have a choice whether or not, I wanted to continue on with with a psychiatrist or psychologist. I believe it was a psychiatrist, and because they were the one prescribing the medication, and yeah, and I didn't have a say in anything. And when I was navigating this experience, I'm starting to be I'm starting to get raged a little bit, because of everything that was kind of transpiring, but behind the scenes, with everything, the way that, ultimately the actions, the repercussions I was going through because of my actions. So as I was going through this experience, and I was again going through all of this, is I couldn't sleep. My mind was just running like 1,000 miles an hour. One thought led into another, and then it led into another, and I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep for several days. So therefore, what happens? I began to hallucinate. I began to experience the negative effects, the negative impact that it has on one's body and mental state when they cannot sleep, when they do not sleep. I started to experience those things. So therefore, here again, ambulance gets called out. I get picked up, and when I get picked up, I'm back in the hospital. My psychiatrist it places me on a 1799, trying to work through some things. And this time, I just needed to go to the hospital because I needed to sleep. I couldn't shut my mind off. I couldn't turn my thoughts off. I couldn't. And here I am, placed on 1799. They get me sedated. I'm fine. I feel 100% again, because I got some rest and ended up getting sent home. And during this time, I'm still on antidepressants and on mental health medications, and just navigating this season, navigating this process. As I was going through this, it was a few days again. I couldn't sleep, and now this is my third time, having to go to the hospital because I couldn't sleep and I needed help to sleep. During this process, is again, I just needed some sleep. Now, before the ambulance got called, I, was telling my mother, how I couldn't sleep, and I just needed help getting some rest. And and this is still January of 2020. So she's like, "You need to go to the hospital. Let me call the ambulance. Let's take you to the hospital." And now at this point, because this is going to be my third call for this for these occurrences, for this experience, this is essentially my third strike. That's how I'm looking at it. And I do not want to go to the hospital because they're gonna keep me, and this is what's going on in my mind. And I'm like, they're gonna keep me. They're not gonna let me out. They're gonna put me in a facility. Like, this is what was going on in my mind in that moment. And as I'm navigating this season, as I'm navigating this moment, she eventually was able to talk me out of it, and I was like, okay. I was like, you know what? I will go to the hospital under one thing. And she said, what? And I said, call my brother. And she called my brother, and I wanted my brother there, my big brother there, because or to see me, prior to me going to the hospital, because his mind is sharp. He can be a little bit hot-headed at times, but his mind is sharp. He's very educated, especially if he utilizes it in the right way. And when, I called him, and he ends up coming to the house, and mind you, he had to work that day, but he called in due to the circumstances, and he ended up coming, and he's looking at me, and he's like, what's going on? So, we're updating him with everything. I couldn't sleep. I need to go to the hospital just to get sleep, yada, yada, yada. And he was like, yeah, you need to go to the hospital. And when he said that, I was like, okay, I'll go to the hospital under one condition. And he said, what? And I says, promise me I will make it out. And in this time, I'm getting a little bit emotional, but in this time, he he knew, I was like, this is my third strike. I was like, promise me I will make it out. He looked me in the eye, and I'm in this moment. I'm crying. I'm scared. I'm freaking out. Like this. Like this is it. This is the end of the road for me. Kind of mentality. And he looked me in the eye, and he was like, I promise you, you're gonna make it out. He was like, I promise you that's not gonna happen. And I said, okay. The ambulance comes. They take me to the hospital. My mom calls my psychiatrist to give them the update on, hey, Victor's going to the hospital because he couldn't sleep again, yada, yada, yada. Now, during this time, I show up to the hospital. I'm thinking I'm going to go there. They're going to do what they did the second time, which is, give me something to help me sleep. I'm going to wake up and I'm going to be fine again. And that was not the case. One thing led into another. This moment became the darkest, ugliest. The first moment was the darkest moment to overcome and get through. Okay, this third experience was the ugliest thing I had to go through. And the reason why I say that is because, here I am, I'm in the hospital, I'm coherent, I'm alert, I'm talking to doctors and nurses and medical personnel by name basis. I'm sharp, I'm like that. And of course, when it comes to the doctors, you got to be respectful and you call them Dr. So-and-so. But everyone else, like the paramedics, the EMTs, the medical personnel, the nurses, I'm on it. I'm sharp. Hey, what's your name? And I would, John. Nice to meet you, John. I'm sharp. I'm coherent. And as I'm navigating this process, as I'm going through this, okay, one thing led into another. And based off of my past experiences, I remember in this particular moment, like it's like a while goes by and there's no clock around me that I can pinpoint 15 minutes goes by or 30 minutes goes by. I just know it's been a very long while. At least like 30 to 45 minutes has gone by. And I remember just being in the hallway, and no, I didn't see a doctor, didn't see a nurse, I didn't see a psychiatrist, I didn't see anybody. And excuse me, I just remember showing up in the hospital, showing up via ambulance to the hospital. Eventually, as time goes on, then the ambulance, I transfer from the hospital gurney to the hospital bed, to the hospital gurney. Excuse me. And as I'm going through this and navigating this process and this season, this moment is it just got quiet for the longest time. And they put me in a hallway because it was really, really busy. And and no contact. Again, no doctors, no nurses, no one. This is when the moment got real. So here I am thinking, I'm going to come in, everything is going to be okay. Now, this is the moment when I realized that just how manipulative a person who has authority can manipulate the situation against you. I learned a lot about manipulation this time. I learned a lot about the influence of a person's words, the impact they can have on other people. So as I was going through this experience and navigating this turbulent time, I finally, I finally have my psychiatrist comes. I see a familiar face. Okay, I'm a little bit relieved, but not so relieved, right? Because it's a psychiatrist. You don't know what to expect. The psychiatrist comes, starts asking me questions. Asking me questions such as, are you suicidal? No. Do you feel safe at home? Yes. Starts asking me questions in this category, in this context. And I'm answering the questions. I'm coherent. My tone, I'm very In this moment, again, I'm sharp. I'm very fully aware on how I am approaching this situation and how I am responsive. I'm very focused on the tone of my voice. I'm very focused on the utilization of my words, making sure I utilize words in my sentences that do not come off as aggressive or cannot come off as misinterpreted. I'm mentally sharp. And I just remember after all of these questions, psychiatrists talk to me and they say, they say, I'm gonna go speak to your mother now. Okay, they leave. I'm by myself again. I'm in the gurney. I'm not in my wheelchair, so I can't do anything. I can't really move because I'm just laying there. I'm like a vegetable, so to speak, to an extent. The only thing I can do is move my head a little bit because I'm laying down. And now, during this experience, one thing led into another. Psychiatrist comes again. Psychiatrist comes again, starts asking me more questions. I answer again. Okay, psychiatrist leaves. I'm going to go speak to your mother now. Okay. And during this moment, I'm asking, okay, can my mom come at my bedside? And mind you, like this is my first occurrence, being going through this 5150 psychiatric hold experiences. Okay, but this is not my first rodeo being in a hospital setting. So I know, like for me, when I go into the hospital, my mom is always at my bedside. I always have someone at my bedside. I just like a second pair of eyes and ears. That's just personally me. It's one thing when a patient vocalizes something, and it's another when the person next to you vocalizes something for you. When you advocate yourself, they can utilize terms as they're being aggressive. They need a psych eval. If someone advocates for you that's at your bedside, right? They can't utilize that against you because you didn't vocalize anything. You're not the one trying to, get certain type of care or treatments or attentive care that you think is needed. It's a different viewpoint at that point. But back to the topic back to the story is as I was going through this, I remember, the second time again, the psychiatrist comes. I'm going to go speak to your mom. They leave, and when they left, okay, gets quiet for a little bit. Then I see a security guard grab a chair and sit right across from my bedside. So I'm in the hallway. So I'm leaning at the right side against the wall in the gurney, and I just see the hospital security, get a chair right across from me to my left side. Now, when I see that, there's someone behind me and they're agitated, they're going through something themselves. And, so I'm in the middle. Okay, I'm trying to be positive and optimistic with this situation. Okay, so I see the security there, and I'm like, the security is not there for it. The security is not there for you. The security it could be for the person behind you. And this woman is like angry. They're excuse me. This woman is angry. They're agitated. This person is requesting for a particular type of medication. I don't want to mention the medication. I know exactly what it is. I don't want to mention it just because I do not want any of you watching this, especially if you're navigating a mental health season yourself. Become curious and look up the medication. This medication I personally had, it is out of all of the medications I've had, it is the only medication I refuse to get just because of how addictive it is. Now they were requesting this medication and so everyone is kind of just ignoring them just because, some patients really do abuse what it is they are feeling, what it is they are going through, just so they can receive that type of treatment, that type of medication. And in this moment, this case, although I do not know the individual, just off of what they exactly were saying and how they were approaching the situation, I think they were an individual who may have been abusing the situation just to get what they want, meaning that type of medication in particular. And so, I'm in the middle. I'm trying to be optimistic. The security is not for you. The security is for them. And because, again, they are coming off a bit aggressive, which is understandable. Now, eventually, I can't remember exactly what was like the moment when I realized they're not for them. But I do remember I'm in the gurney and I'm just waiting there, and no contact, no nurses, no doctors. The only person I am seeing, have been seen, is a psychiatrist. So now here I am. I eventually looked to the security guard and I said, "Hey," I was like, "Are you here for me?" And I'm calm about it. I have a calm approach about it. Like, "Hey, are you here for me?" Or I think I said, "Hey, brother, are you here for me?" And he ignored me. Okay. So when he ignored me, I think that was the moment when I realized, yeah, they're there for you. Okay, they ignored me. So now I'm going through my thoughts. One thought is leading to another, and I'm like, okay, what's really going on here? What's really conspiring here? And eventually I asked him again, "Hey, are you here for me?" I asked him several times, and I'm calm. I'm not getting agitated about it. I have a very calm, as I have a very calm approach to it. And eventually they answered me, and they stood up, and they're angry. You can tell. Either one, they didn't want to be there, or two, maybe because of whatever it was that was being said about me. So they already have influenced eyes, tainted eyes, I would call it. And so he gets up and he looks to me and he says, "Yes, I'm here for you. Do you need anything?" But he comes off assertive, aggressive, okay, approaching dominance. First and foremost, dude, I'm a vegetable in the bed. Like, you don't need to show your dominance. And in this moment, again, I'm really going through it. So, eventually they sit back down. Now I know something behind the scenes is going on. What's going on is my question. What is happening? What is going on that I do not know? I am in uncharted territory. So if you ever hear the metaphor, ever heard the saying, "The devil speaks," trust me, he speaks. But however, so does God. God is always listening. And as I'm navigating this experience, as I'm going through this season, right? The psychiatrist eventually comes again. This is their third time. Okay, they ask me some more questions, and I answer. And towards the very last question, the psychiatrist is at my foot side. So I'm looking down, because again I'm on the gurney, but I'm sitting up a little bit, but not sitting up all the way. And I'm sitting up, and they're at my foot side. So I'm looking down a little bit, right? They eventually come with their clipboard at the very last question. They put the clipboard under their arm. They pull out their hand, try to shake my hand, which is hard to do because my physical capability and physical strength is not the greatest, because of my SMA. Shakes my hand. I'm respectful. I don't know what's going on. I pick up my hand and they shake my hand. Okay. And they held my hand for a quick second and said, "By the way, I'm placing you on 5150. Turns around and walks away. And it was, in reflecting off of it, that's like a moment of asserting dominance. And that's just how it feels. I felt so belittled, patronized, small, to literally look over my bedside, look over my gurney, look me dead in the eyes. We were slouched over, and you make it a point to shake that individual's hand, to say, "I'm placing you on 5150. Turns around and walks away. I didn't have any question. I couldn't have any questions answered within that moment. I couldn't ask why what triggered it. I couldn't, I didn't have no answers to any of my questions. As you can imagine, a million questions instantly are flooded. But the most important one was why. That's when I knew it got real. That's when I knew, okay, Vic, what you think is going on is not. There's something going on behind the scenes. Now, the very thing, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, is now what I thought wasn't going to happen started to happen. Meaning, I'm not coming back home. I get extremely emotional. I am scared. I am frightened. I am not only by myself, but I am incapable to physically do anything. I am a vegetable in bed, alone, by himself. That's scary. It's a very ugly feeling. Cannot so much just be alone, but be alone and know you can't do anything. You can't offend for yourself. And on top of that, you can't even utilize the most powerful thing you have, which is your voice, because you're placed on 5150. Anything you say and do does not matter, because the hospital now has control over you. I want you to imagine how you would feel in that moment. Now, yes, I put myself in that predicament. I take a full accountability for it. And I've talked about accountability in the history of this YouTube channel. But the way that I was placed on 5150 was not right. And I reflect on it so much, and it's just not right. And, you know, back to the story to talk about what happened next, because I'm sure you guys are intrigued, curious, is what happened next is, excuse me, what happened next is a nurse finally came to my bedside. I am here for so long. The security guard I had first got swapped out, and I had another security guard take that place, take their post, their position, take on the next shift. That's how long I have been there this far. Second security guard, I'm trying to conversate with them. They're ignoring me. Eventually, you know, I was able to you know, get them to communicate back with me. One conversation led into another. Now we're engaging in good conversations, and all of these security guards, I have no malice towards any of them, because they were just simply just doing their job. But their eyes definitely were influenced. They did not see me with clear eyes. And I understand, you know, you're reflecting off of it and knowing the knowledge that I have now, and especially when it comes to the mental health community, especially with the way it's gotten to the extent that it is now, I do understand their why they approached me the way they did. I do. And I completely understand it. It's not an easy job. It's not an easy position. There's so many things that they've seen, so many things that they go through, that their guard always has to be up, regardless, you know, regardless of it, right? So I understand that, and I'm very empathetic, and I'm very empathetic from their point of view. Eventually, one conversation led into the next. I'm communicating with the security guard. Just to give an example, what kind of conversations and how much we kind of learned from each other, is their favorite song was from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I never knew who they were at the moment, but, you know, that's just kind of an idea where our conversations kind of led. And you know, amazing people. And one of the questions I asked them was why do you think I'm placed on 5150? Do you think I should be 5150? And one of them said, and one of them looked to me, you know, we're just normal conversation. They are the only people I can talk to, because again, I'm in the hallway. I'm alone. No one else is at my bedside. So as we're talking, and I says, do I seem like an individual that should be placed on 5150? And they said, honestly, man, no, you don't. You appear fine to me. You appear coherent. They said they do not know why they, meaning the psychiatrist, placed me on 5150. And I will mention too that they did share that psychiatrist has a history for, they have a bad rep. Let's just say that. What that means, I don't know. Never looked into it afterwards. But I don't know. But they did mention that. And as I'm navigating this experience, as I'm going through this moment, okay, eventually the nurse comes. The nurse is getting ready to, they're getting things set up to draw blood. Okay. It's my first experience navigating 5150, during that month, but it's not my first rodeo being in the hospital. So, when I see certain things, I already know more or less what's going to happen next, what it is that they are doing. So when I see them preparing with the syringe and the needle and everything, I knew they're going to draw blood. So I asked my nurse, and I'm calm. And till this day, I remember their names. Till this day, I remember their name. Of course, I won't mention it publicly, but as we are, as they are prepping, I asked the nurse and I said, "Hey, are you gonna draw blood? I already know the answer to it, but it's a conversation starter, right? Get your foot into the door, kind of thing." And they said yes, and I said okay, but they don't answer with like yes. They answer, their back is against me, like their shoulder back is against me because they're at my foot side, and they looked at me and said yes, but like aggressive. Everyone's aggressive. They're angry, and there's definitely something that was being said about me. I don't know what, but there definitely was something because it wasn't just one person I experienced that with. It was like with everyone that was assigned to my case. And so now with their tone, I'm like, you're like, dude, this is like David and Goliath kind of thing going on right now. And and again, I'm calm, I'm keeping my composure, I'm mentally sharp. And as I'm navigating this, and I said, before you draw blood, would you mind also starting an IV because I'm a hard stick? And they're like, and this is when I really started to understand manipulation, because how they can manipulate the situation. Because when I was going through this, they said, "Are you refusing to get your lab work done?" When you utilize the word refusing in medical terminology is not a good thing to be charted on your medical chart. I want to share that with you. And I'm like, no, I'm not refusing. And again, I'm calm. Like they come off aggressive. "Are you refusing?" "No, I'm not refusing." I said, "I'm just a hard stick." My record for getting at that time, it's broken now, but at that time, it was 14 sticks just to draw blood. And it was 15 sticks to start an IV. Now, drawing blood and starting an IV, two different things. You both get poked. Both with the IV and the lab work, you get poked, but one's different because with the IV, you have to thread the catheter. With drawing labs, it's just getting the needle to a vein. And I'm like, no, I'm not refusing. So then I'm like, "Can you ask the doctor?" Okay. They end up leaving. They come back. I have someone else come, and they don't even ask me questions. They just come, put the, what's the word for it? I should know this. The tourniquet. When they put the tourniquet on my arm, and I know they're drawing blood, and I said, wait, before you draw blood, I'm a hard stick. Can you also start an IV? Okay. They are ignoring me. When they did not answer me, that's when I knew, Vic, you have no idea what you're up against. Don't lose your composure. Just stay calm. The thing in my mind going on at the time was just, keep your mouth shut. Keep your mouth shut. Keep your mouth shut. Because the moment, I reacted the way they probably were hoping that I would, was the moment that they win. And that's why within my book, I didn't even think it was going to lead it this way, but it did. But that's why in my book, Become the Victor, Turning Trials into Triumph, I talk so much about defeat the enemy within. It's defeating this guy up here. It's defeating that voice that that makes you just wants you to react without thinking. I couldn't give them the satisfaction. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. I let them do them. They eventually leave. And right before I ended up seeing them again a second time, they needed more lab work. Now, so they leave with the first set of labs. They come back, the same person that, drew my labs comes back again, and they're getting ready to draw more labs, to run more tests. Okay, at this time, my psychiatrist is just trying to run tests, see what's going on. Again, I only came in here just to sleep. I wasn't agitated, I wasn't angry, it wasn't anything like that. I just needed sleep. Till this day, I have not looked at my chart, probably should. I have not looked at my chart entirely, I glimpsed at it, but I haven't really fully looked at it, especially the notes. I have no idea what was said, what was charted till this day. I never looked at it. And again, I glanced at it, but I haven't fully looked at it. Excuse me. So as when it came to the second time, they had to draw labs because they had to do more lab work. What happens? They come. Eventually, I was able to communicate with them. I was able to talk to them. And maybe because they are seeing my approach, maybe they are seeing how I'm coming off, maybe they're focused on my demeanor, my tone, I don't know. But eventually, we were able to start talking. And eventually, I did get my IV in. And eventually, towards the second encounter I had with this individual, it was I was their last patient. They were just about to get off shift. And as we were talking right before they left, and they said, I forgot how it kind of came about, but she asked me that, she says, a lot of people think that she comes off like rude. There was like a certain word she utilized. And we were talking, and they were like, do you think I come off rude? And and I answered, and I was like, no, I don't think you came off rude. I just think there's something being said about me that kind of influenced your eyes. I didn't utilize that terminology, but it was something along those lines, right? And maybe because of the way I was talking with the security as well, kind of helped maybe have the idea like, okay, give this guy a chance, right? I don't know. But, they ended up leaving, they ended up running tests. Now my nurse comes back, which is the one that said, are you refusing to get lab work done? No, they come back. And now they need a urine sample. Okay, I need assistance. So if you're coming across me for the first time, I need 100% assistance when it comes to bathroom utilization. And so when it came to the urine sample, I said, what, again, several hours has gone by. Several hours has gone by. I have not seen my mom. So at this point, this is when things this is how God started working wonders. God works in mysterious ways. Because during this time, I personally like to utilize the word enemy. I don't like to utilize the word devil much. That's just personally for me. But, it is at your highest moments, that is when the devil comes for you. And the devil really did try to take me down. They really, really tried to take my spirit, to grab and take hold of my soul. But I had that little ounce of faith. Everything would be okay. And this is the moment when God started working in mysterious ways. He always has been. It is needed, one thing had to lead into the next before, it was like God's chess move, and so to speak. Before God was able to kind of say checkmate kind of thing. because God always has the final say. Now, God works in mysterious ways because I needed a urine sample, right? I cannot utilize the restroom by myself. I need assistance. So I told the nurse that, and I said, would it be possible that I can have my mom take me to use the restroom because I am more comfortable with her taking me? Okay. You want to see your mother? Now, with that approach, I knew that my psychiatrist had said something where that is why my mother couldn't be at my bedside. I don't know what it was, but there was something that was being being spoken about. So I said, yes. Can my mom take me to use the restroom? I'm more comfortable with her. Okay. They leave. They don't even say anything. Like their demeanor, their approach was just very heavy. So they leave. Okay. I get a sense of relief because what do I see walking down the hallway? My mother. Now, when I see her, she's just going, she doesn't talk to me. She's not communicating with anything. I don't know what's being said. I don't know anything. Okay. She's going to help me use the restroom. And mind you, I'm in the hallway. So I then ask my nurse, is it possible, I can get like they in hospital settings, especially in when you're in the hallway, they have these I'd call it dividers, or privacy dividers, I guess you would call it, where they could put, so you have some privacy. You do, but you don't, so to speak. You do, but you don't have privacy. But something is better than nothing. So I have that. My mom's helping me use a restroom, and I asked my mom, "What's going on?" Okay, she's helping me use the restroom. And I'm very uncomfortable, again, to even utilize the restroom in the hallway. And, and I ask her, what's going on? And she's whispering to me and she says, I don't know what's going on. And I'm like, you haven't spoken to my psychiatrist? And she said, no. I said, my psychiatrist has been communicating with me saying that they have been speaking to you. And she said, no. So now, what does mom do? She becomes mama bear. What's going on? Okay. God works in mysterious ways because if it wasn't for my psychiatrist needing a urine sample, and if it wasn't for the nurse grabbing my mother, I don't know if I would even be here today. I don't know if I would be in a facility. I don't know if my mental state would have been damaged because of the medications, because of the dosage of the medications. I genuinely don't know. I would not be here today. Let's just be flat out and be very candid. I would not be here today. I would not be an author. I would not be a podcast host. I would not be an advocate for the mental health community if it wasn't for that. After they got the urine sample, my mom looks to me and she says, son, I don't know what's going on, but I am going to find out. Now, my mom, has been she's had a rough upbringing. Okay. But when a person has a rough upbringing, they dictate whether or not if they are going to utilize their upbringing to give them strength or to have them feel sorry for themselves. Now, my mother utilized her story to give her strength. And she instilled that within me, which I am very, very grateful and fortunate for. Where I'm going with this is my mom worked for a level 4 institution prison. And I mention that because and she worked at a men's institution. And I mention that because, my mother is very sweet, but she also has a very assertive and a not one to be played with type of spirit, type of person, type of individual. Okay. So when she said, I'm going to figure it out, I just knew, okay, Vic, it's not just you out here fighting. You got in a very spiritual context. Now you got some angels fighting for you. You're not the only one out here in this battlefield. The way I was combating the situation was my approach to what was happening to me. In my book, one of my philosophies is when you can't control what is happening, control the way you respond to what is happening. Because you can't control your situations. But the one thing you do always have control of is your approach to your very situations. During this experience, my mom eventually started advocating for me. What is going on with my son? What my mom started advocating for me. Okay. Eventually, one thing led into another. Several hours has gone by. I have not eaten anything. I haven't drank anything. I'm in the hospital. I'm a vegetable. Several hours has gone by, and the care that you would think an individual would receive for being in the hospital were not met. And I'll explain, in a second how so many wrongs went on within this process that till this day, so many wrongs happened within that process where if I did combat it, I'm over it now, but if I did combat it, I probably would have had a good fighting chance with a significant lawsuit. Probably a lot of people would have lost their jobs. I think that's probably what could have happened. Would that have happened? I don't know because I didn't do it, right? But I can say that during this process, again, I'm back alone because my mom left, and my mom's advocating for me behind the scenes, so to speak. And there was this person. They had to have been a doctor. I knew they were a doctor because of the lab coat that they were wearing. And they were walking back and forth, and you can tell this particular doctor was very busy. She was very busy. And because she was walking back and forth, and she was like quickly walking and speed walking. And I kept, as everything is going on, time is going on, I'm just trying, I'm trying to get some push. I'm trying to get answers. As people are going by, every single individual that walks by, excuse me, I'm just trying to have someone acknowledge me. Nobody acknowledged me. Not one. Until that doctor walked past me several times. Not once, not twice, but several times. And they were an individual that I was trying to have stop and acknowledge me. Excuse me. Okay. To fast forward and cut through everything is that doctor finally gave me the time of day, stopped, looked at me, and said yes. And I says, I've been here for several hours. I haven't spoken to anyone. Can I just see what's going on? Yada, yada, yada. Okay. The doctor leaves and says, the first encounter, let me rephrase that. The first encounter, they finally acknowledged me, and I'm just trying to get some answers. And right before the doctor leaves, the doctor said, yes, I will look into it. Okay. Right before the doctor entirely left my bedside, okay, she sees the security and she says, are you here for him? And he says, yes, he's placed 5150. Okay. I didn't hear from her again. So it's like what she was originally going to do got thrown out the window because, he's 5150, not worth my time. He's somebody else's patient. Kind of thing. That's what happened first. Okay. That doctor started walking past me again several times because, again, they're busy and they're going back and forth. Okay. The second time they approached me, they finally started to actually just hear what I had to say. And I says, I'm just trying to get answers. I've been here for so long. I just want to know what's going on. Okay. That doctor finally looked into it. Doctor left. The doctor finally came back to me and said, I spoke with your psychiatrist. They are currently looking to ship you out to a facility. They're currently looking to not ship you. Let me rephrase that. They're currently looking to place you into a facility. You are placed on 5150. Okay, I already knew the 5150 part. I didn't know I was in the process of going to a facility. Okay. Now I skipped the part, so I apologize. But now I learned they are in the process of looking to send me to a facility. Okay. Now what happens? Now the nurse comes with a urine sample. I skipped a part. I apologize, but please bear with me. But now my mom comes. I do the urine sample. That's when I tell my mom, hey, have you been speaking to the psychiatrist? What's going on? Yada yada yada. That's when my mom said no, I haven't spoken to them, and that's when I told my mom, my psychiatrist has told me several times that they have been communicating with you. And that's when my mom knew, okay, that the psychiatrist was lying. She has not had any form of communication since I left home, since the first initiation of the conversation started that I was coming to the hospital. Okay. Okay. I told my mom, I just found out that I am being sent, that they are currently looking to send me to a facility. Okay. That's when mom started to advocate. My mom says, don't worry about it. Let me figure it out. Let me get some answers. Now, my mom already knows once you're placed 5150, there's nothing she can do. But there's just when you think there's nothing you can do, there is always something that can be done. This is what I learned. No matter how much your options feel are impossible or how much there is no other alternative options for you, there is always one more thing that can be done. What that is, it is only up to you to discover it. But you have to continue to fight and show up for it. Not physically fight, I want to be fully transparent, especially for the mental health community, but you have to continue to combat whatever it is that you are up against. So mom leaves, cut everything short. They couldn't find me a facility. I have to sleep overnight. My mom sleeps on my bedside. I need respiratory care every night. And when I am our respiratory therapist comes, I talk to the respiratory therapist right before every time before I go to sleep. I need to have a trilogy. The Kaiser doesn't have a trilogy. However, we settle for a BiPAP. So during this process, we're trying to get everything situated. Respiratory therapist leaves. They do not come back. They do not come back to give me what it is that I need. Okay. And not just in a hospital setting, like this is in my chart written, this is what he needs every single day, kind of thing. Okay. That respiratory therapist never comes back. So I'm staying overnight. My mom's at my bedside. I am very fortunate because now it is not just my word against medical professionals. It's my word in addition to a plus one's word, for whatever happens to come next. And again, when a patient vocalizes something, that can be manipulated against you. When when a plus one advocates for you, that cannot be used against you because you are not the one vocalizing it, right? It's very different. I learned this being in a hospital setting. Now, as I'm in this experience, I eventually get tired of the situation and the circumstances and how much of everything was going on. I just said, I'll sleep without it. It's fine, whatever, because because I was going nowhere with the respiratory therapist. Now, I was very fortunate because the psychiatrist really, really tried to send me to a facility. Okay. It didn't work in their favor because because of my SMA and because of my attentive care that I require, no facility wanted to pick up my case. That was a blessing for me. Me having a disability was my biggest blessing in this particular moment because again, no facility had any experience to attend for my type of needs for my needs to be met. So that worked in my favor. Now, that same doctor that I mentioned earlier that was walking back and forth and eventually they acknowledged me, that same doctor, during this process, my mom is there and we're just trying to get ready for the night to sleep through the night. Okay, extra blankets and your essentials, just to make it through the night. Okay, my nurse was ignoring me, not just me, but ignoring us. My respiratory therapist was ignoring us. Everyone was ignoring us until that doctor. We happened to see that doctor. My mom was able to talk to them, and the doctor again started to establish a report of me, with me, who I was, right? Not what was being said about who I was, but who was I? And based off of their eyes, their point of view. Very, very fortunate for that doctor, because that doctor became God sent. Now, the thing, the biggest blessing, because again, no facility wanted to pick up my case because they had no experience to have my needs met. We had to wait until the morning to have another psychiatrist that actually ran that department, had the authority to override and uplift my initial 5150 status. So 5150, you're placed on a 72-hour hold where anything you say and do, again, does not matter. The hospital has control over you. You no longer have, your rights get completely stripped. So it's the next morning, fast forward through everything. It's the next morning, the psychiatrist comes into the room, we're talking, and he's asking me questions, and this doctor was an angel in my eyes. And they were God sent, because they had the power to uplift the 5150. Now, when we started talking, they started asking me questions, they started answering them. And so as during our conversation, he said, your psychiatrist said you were suicidal. And during this time, my nails were fairly long. And I says, don't you think if I was suicidal, I could have just slit my wrist? And I said, look at my nails. And he looked at me, and I'm communicating. And again, I'm calm, I'm coherent, I'm calm and I'm coherent. I'm very sharp. He looks at me, doesn't say anything, and he just nods. And he asked me a few additional questions, and we conversated for several minutes. And eventually he looks at me and he says, I'm going to lift the 5150. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, God, because this was one hell of a fight. I went from not knowing what was going to happen to navigating one of the ugliest seasons of my life, to having the moment and the feeling of David going against Goliath, experiencing immense desperation where you have no rights. Everyone is combating against you. It's you're a one-man soldier battling an entire army of medical personnel. You are laying in bed a vegetable. The only power you have is the choice of the vocalization of your words, your approach to your situation. You went from being that one-man soldier, combating, again, an entire army, to doing what you do best. Despite your circumstances, you continue to show up. Despite the desperation, the hopelessness that the situation appeared to be, you still had faith. Despite you thinking and feeling that you were not worth it. Because again, the psychiatrist looked at my bedside, made it a point to shake my hand, look me dead in the eyes, slouched over, and say, I'm placing you 5150, to make you feel like you do not matter. To becoming the very person to go through these experiences. Several years later, from that moment, becoming a mental health advocate, an author of Become the Victor Turning Trials into Triumph, a podcast host and interviewer where I am interviewing people from all sorts of life, from reality TV contestants, serial entrepreneurs that have generated over $1 billion in revenue, from interviewing people that have turned their own test into testimonies, to being a speaker. Is a blessing. It is a miracle. Because again, I should not be here, but I am. And I share this with you. I really didn't think I would go in depth within this video, but to be here is again a miracle. I should not be here. And I want to highlight, because many of you might be asking and may be curious, do you take any form of medication for your mental health? Do you still take antidepressants? And it is okay if you do. I'm not saying it isn't. But for me, I personally do not. 1 month after I was lifted from that 5150, I became off the antidepressants. In fact, it was like roughly that same week. When I spoke, just to speak a little bit afterwards, after that 5150 was uplifted, talked to the psychiatrist that had the authority to uplift the 5150. We started talking, and when we started talking, they said, okay, we want to schedule, I want to see you for a follow-up appointment, and we want to schedule you for a therapy session. Okay, sure. Before I left, I said, can I see you? Because I gravitated so much with him. And he looked at me and he says, you know what? He says, yes. Yeah, I can see you. Perfect. I see him. Okay, mind you, our follow-up appointment was like in 2 weeks from that initial 5150 uplift sensation, if that's even a word. And first week, I got off from taking any medication. There's a lot more to that story as well. And I remember going to my follow-up appointment. Psychiatrist asked me questions. How are you doing? I'm doing great. I'm sleeping better. I'm doing better. I'm feeling better. And he says, oh, that's great. You know, I want to increase the dosage to your medication. First and foremost is, and this is nothing against them, but first and foremost, if a person is taking antidepressants or taking any form of medication, you see improvements, why do you want to increase it? That's my big question. But they became shocked when I said, actually, I haven't been taking the medication. Really? They were like astonished. And I said, yes. And it turns out that a medication they had prescribed me, because I was taking several at the time, one of them was an antidepressant. One of those medications I was told was going to help me sleep. Turns out that medication that was supposed to help me sleep was not used to help you sleep. It was another form of antidepressants. It was another mental chemical to help you with your mental state. They were astonished when he heard I was not taking it. And it's been a very surreal journey. This is a very long video. I appreciate your guys' time if you guys have stuck with me, to the end of this video. But I share this because I do not want to. I don't want you to see me and be in, have sympathy or pity or, I'm not sharing this, to have you be like, oh, I'm sorry that you had to go through that. I'm not sorry I had to go through that. Yeah, it sucked going through it, but I am very grateful because of that experience. along with all of the bad and ugly experiences within my life. Why? Because it all led me here. It's like a giant puzzle. Every season, every moment, every chapter, every page is a puzzle piece all fitting together. One puzzle piece at a time. And in the moment, you may not understand why you go through certain things. Like in the moment, I did not understand why I was navigating that season, why I was going through that. But I will tell you what, I am glad I did go through that. I am glad it did happen. Might sound crazy, but I am grateful because of those experiences, because of the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because again, it led me here. Because it became this puzzle where I can now have this full picture. Where again, I'm a published author. I'm a podcast host. I am a mental health and SMA advocate. I want you guys to understand you can go through the most ugliest trenches of your life. In a spiritual context, the devil can be attacking you so much. You want to quit. You want to give up. You see no way out. I have been there. And I can tell you, and I promise you, God works in mysterious ways. But you have to keep the faith. It is so much easier said than done. But I am talking from personal experience. And if you're not, and also I want to highlight as well, you are not weak. Despite if people make you feel so, or make you feel lonely, or make you feel small, or make you feel anything less than whole, is I am here to remind you that you are worthy. You are worth fighting for. You are resilient and so much stronger than you ever possibly can imagine because of all of the things you have been through. And here you are. Sure, your life may not be sunshine and rainbows. You may still be going through a season. But if you can take away anything from what I just shared with you, is things do get better. I promise you, things do get better. But again, you have to continue to show up. You have to keep fighting. You have to keep the faith. And above all, it's hold this close. Because when I was navigating some very ugly seasons, especially with the moments that came afterwards, even things that I still combat today, I remind myself with this philosophy. It is my own personal written philosophy. Again, it can be found within my book, Become the Victor, Turning Trials into Triumph, which is, when you can't control what is happening, control the way you respond to what is happening. You cannot control your outside circumstances, but you do and can control what goes on within. This is going to be one of my favorite videos. I don't know why. I didn't think this is really where it was going to lead. I was expecting like a 10-15 minute talk, and it led here, and it just, one thing led into another, but it felt right, and it feels right to create. I hope this video brings immense value to you. And if you can remember absolutely anything from this video, it's my own personal favorite saying. It's my own brand representation, which is grow through what you go through. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. And again, grow through what you go through. Please like the video, comment down below what this video personally meant for you. Subscribe if you guys are new. And I'm very grateful for this journey. I recently just had a press release be released for me, and I'm very grateful for it. It's been a very tough journey, as you can imagine. I am very vulnerable when it comes to my book. I'm very vulnerable when it comes to my content. I personally find that there is so much courage and so much strength in a person's vulnerability, because you don't have to hide anything. I am not afraid of my past. I am not ashamed of my past, because if something I share, something I do, can inspire you or help you in any way, shape, or form, I am living up to my purpose. I am upholding the very thing that God fought so hard for me for, which is why He gave me a second chance. He gave me a second chance so I can help and be of service for you. My only goal is I make Him proud. That's it. I may fall short time to time, just like everyone else. I'm human just as you. But I will tell you what. I do not just try. I do. I do not try to become better. I do better. And I lead by example. So from me to you, don't try something. Do it. And don't wait for someone else to set the example. Lead by it. That's my message for you. I love you guys.